Hello! I have read a lot of books by a lot of really great authors this year, and so I wanted to shout out some of the authors I've discovered this year who I've either read a lot of books from already or who I now want to read more books from. This is by no means an exhaustive list of all of the great authors that I've read from this year. I just would not have time to discuss all of them. This is just 10 authors that I really wanted to shout out. And I'm actually going to start with my number one favourite discovery of the year, and that is Lauren James, who typically writes young adult science fiction, although she does have a young adult fantasy book being released next year. I'm pretty sure that at this point I have read all of her published works, although if there are any more that I'm not aware of, please let me know. I read The Quiet at the End of the World, The Loneliest Girl in the Universe, The Next Together and The Last Beginning, and The Starlight Watchmaker, and I loved each and every one of them. Every single time she drew me in, and her stories were so rich and fun, the characters were amazing, the plots were engaging and intriguing, and I can't wait to read more of her books. Next up, I'm going to talk about Alice Oseman, and from her this year I have read Radio Silence, Solitaire and Heartstoppers volumes 1 and 2, and I Was Born for This is currently on my TBR, and everything that I've read of hers so far I have really enjoyed. She tends to write young adult contemporary books, but with really important and different themes. So for example, Radio Silence deals with the expectation on young adults to go to university and that being the only path to success, which of course it isn't. Solitaire deals with depression and finding yourself and who you are. Heartstopper follows a young male romance story. One of them is bisexual but only discovers that at the beginning of the story, and all of the trials and tribulations that they go through being out teenagers at school. And I Was Born for This I haven't read yet, but I understand deals with pop culture and fame. I find Alice's writing style really simple and straightforward and very British teenager, and I once was one of those, so it's very comforting to read stories from that perspective and in that writing style, and I just really enjoy the way that she writes and the stories that she creates. Next we have Brigid Camera, who I discovered when reading her young adult fantasy retelling of Beauty and the Beast called A Curse So Dark and Lonely, which, like I said, is a Beauty and the Beast retelling, and I really just enjoyed her simple, straightforward, straight to the point writing style. And then much more recently I picked up More Than We Can Tell, which is a contemporary book by her, so completely different genre, and I really enjoyed that as well. She still had the same simplistic, straightforward writing style, which I really enjoyed, but she also dealt with some really heavy themes in both of her books, and I really enjoyed both of them, and I know that she has quite a lot of other books out already, so I definitely want to read through all of those too. Then we have Taylor Jenkins Reid, and I've only read one of her books, which was Daisy Jones and the Six, and it was written in an almost non-fiction style, so it felt like non-fiction, which I don't read a lot of, if any, but it was a fictional story and it was told in interview format, and I really enjoyed it. The characters were very engaging, the plot was very engaging, and I found the writing style really drew me into the story, but again was simple. So as you can see, I like simple writing. I like authors who just say what they mean and get to the point and don't make me have to sift through a whole lot of metaphor to understand what is going on. And that's very much what Taylor Jenkins Reid was doing. I think though that with her books you could probably read into them a lot more if you wanted to do that, if that was your kind of reading style, if you were a much more critical reader than I am. I think you could do that with Daisy Jones and the Six, but equally you don't have to do that to be able to take away a lot from the story. And I know that she also has The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, out, which is a very similar sort of setup. It's also an interview, so I definitely want to pick that up, and I actually have it on hold as an audiobook from my library already, because I think that the full cast audiobooks really do add to Taylor's specific type of writing. Then we have Christina Lauren, the romance duo, and as I mentioned in my recent genres I've tried this year video, I have rediscovered my love of romance writing this year, and part of that is thanks to Christina Lauren. I have read 5 of their books this year, I think, and really enjoyed them. I think that is all of the books that they currently have out that I have an interest in reading. They have a couple of workplace romance series that I'm not particularly interested in, but they will continue coming out with romance books for the foreseeable future, I'm sure, and I will be picking them up because I really enjoyed their character work and their writing style. And you really, if you didn't know that it was 2 authors, I don't think you would know that it was 2 authors, because it's very cohesive, and I just really enjoyed it and found it incredibly fun. Moving to a slightly more sombre type of genre, I read Starfish by Akemi Bowman this year, which is a hard-hitting contemporary that deals with quite a lot of dark themes, including abuse and depression and suicidality and lots of dark stuff, but the writing was incredible, the characters were relatable, the plot was engaging. You're seeing some themes develop here between the authors that I really like. I just really enjoyed the power that Akemi put behind this story, and I know that she has other hard-hitting contemporary books that are out, so I definitely want to pick those up and see if she can rip my heart to shreds again. She probably can. Then we have Becky Chambers, who writes young adult sci-fi. I believe that's all she writes. I think she's currently got 4 books out. So she's got The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, which is the book that I have read. Then she's got A Closed and Common Orbit, Record of a Spaceborne Few, and To Be Taught If Fortunate, I think that's what it's called. And I don't know why I'm sleeping on these books. I need to just get to them because I really, really enjoyed particularly Becky's character work in The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet. They were all incredibly diverse, but not in a shoving it down your throat kind of way. It was very natural, and they were all incredibly relatable. I loved the friendships. She really focuses on friendships in her books. Actually, so does Alice Osmond, and I really love that. I love reading about friendship. So I definitely want to read the rest of Becky's books, and I don't know why I haven't got to them yet. Next up, we have a debut author. Lucy Powery came out with her very first book this year called The Paper and Heart Society, and I read it and I absolutely loved it. It's young adult, but on the younger end of young adult / top end of middle grade, and it follows a character who is in a book club, and there's going to be more books in this series. I don't know if it's going to be a trilogy or a series, but I want to read them. It was just so comforting and light and fun, and I felt like I was with my people as I was reading the book, so I definitely want more. Then let's get back to my roots, shall we? An epic fantasy author, Robert Jackson Bennett. I read Foundryside at the beginning of this year and I absolutely loved it. The magic system was great, the world building was great, the characters were amazing, and I can't wait for the series to continue in 2020. But he does actually have another trilogy that is already out and completed. Don't ask me why, it's now December and I haven't read them yet. Call it a very, 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 very long TBR, keeping me away from those books, but I really enjoyed his writing style and the way that he built his characters and his world and his magic system, and I just want more from him. So I am going to be picking up more of his books. And then finally, I want to talk about Carson, who is a young adult fantasy writer, at least I think so. I'm not aware of her having written in any other genres, but you can correct me if I'm wrong. I read her Girl of Fire and Thorns series earlier this year, really enjoyed it. She dealt with some really different themes in her fantasy, some things that I don't see very often. So she dealt with theology, which was really interesting, and it was also an Arabian inspired fantasy. I think it was the first Arabian inspired fantasy that I read, although I have read others since. And once again, I really enjoyed her simple, straightforward writing style with engaging characters, fun world building, and interesting plot. She has another book coming out in that series next year that I have mentioned in my anticipated 2020 releases video. I don't know if she has any other books that are already out, but if she does, then I want to read them, and if she publishes anything in the future, then I'll want to read that too. But that's it for this list of 10 authors that I've discovered this year. Like I said at the start, this is not an exhaustive list at all. There are so many amazing authors that I've discovered this year, and I'm sure there are many more that I am yet to discover. And if you know about any of those, leave me some recommendations down below. I am absolutely up for trying out some new authors, always. And that's it for this one. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video and want to see more like this from me, then do think about hitting that subscribe button, and I hope to see you here again soon. Thanks. Bye.